Hello everyone, I'm Jim Longworth and welcome to another edition of Triad Today. Coming up later on, our infamous roundtable gets together for our last roundtable of the season, and it's a longer one. I think you'll have fun with it, but a lot of good information will be coming your way with that too. Speaking of good information, we're going to talk about respite care, why it's so important to caregivers. That and much more coming your way, but we're going to start out talking about a very fine organization. I'm a big fan of what they do, and a big event that this organization is putting on to help raise awareness for what they do. Let's get right to it. On my immediate right, David Daggett, our good buddy, attorney from Daggett Schuler. He and his partner, Griff Schuler, have brought along a very special guest, a first-timer for our show. Greg Keener is Director of Development for Piedmont Land Conservancy, and of course, as I mentioned, Griff Schuler is here. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Hey, Jim. Thanks, Jim.
Lori, our director, just to give, I do these little signs just like at the airport, with it. Lori, I'm going to go to Greg first. I want to talk to him a little bit about the mission of the Land Conservancy, and then we'll talk about this big event coming up. What is the Piedmont Land Conservancy's mission, Greg?
To boil it down, it's to protect the nature of the Piedmont, and that takes a few different paths. We've worked with a lot of the local state parks to expand the parks. We work with private landowners, people who have a piece of farmland, maybe they've had for generations, and they just want to see it stay farmland. So our primary tool is the conservation easement. It's a legal agreement between a landowner and an organization like
So that
PLC.
later on, years down the road, somebody can't say, hey, we're just going to sell this to a developer and he's going to put up a shopping center.
See, that's the great thing. They get to keep their land, keep farming it, keep using it however they like. If the farm gets sold, given to the grandkids, it's going to carry that easement with it, and it's a permanent agreement. Saying,
I think that's great. Now, I've been reading about the Children's Home Project, a beautiful tract of land there, and they do great work, of course, but they have a lot of farmland there. You're involved in that. Why are you involved?
Well, they approached us, and we've said for years we'd love to help them protect that land from development. I started working at Piedmont Land Conservancy 5 years ago, and before my first day, I had people come up to me and say, you're going to be with PLC. Are you ever going to do something with the children's home?
Exactly.
And we had to wait for them to be ready to do it, and they came to us. We made an agreement, and essentially what we're doing is buying that conservation easement, buying the development rights, you could say, on 92 acres of the land.
And very quickly, once this is a done deal, will everybody be able to use the land, or as far as walking through there? Or
it is still their property. They still own it. They're very open to the public. Part of this, though, is to put in a 1.5 mile walking trail.
Okay.
They'll have a little parking area, almost be like a little park that'll be open to the public.
All right, to bring more awareness to this whole thing, David Daggett, tell us about this big event coming up.
Yeah, so Sunday afternoon is the second annual farm run, which is a great run and a unique experience. I'm involved in a lot of running races around.
That's right.
This one is wholly contained within the farm and the children's home property.
Wow.
It's really neat. Greg does a great job to bring some unique aspects to it, including roasting s'mores on an open fire after the race. So it's a good time for fellowship, but it does two things. Greg's done a great job with sponsors to bring some money in, but it also raises awareness of what the PLC is trying to do with this land, which I call a triple win. It helps the children's home and preserves their property. It helps the community in that it preserves that property from development, and it preserves the land, which most people don't realize is bigger than Haynes Park.
Oh, it's huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. Griff, why do you believe in this so much, you and David, and throwing your support behind this event, which means throwing your support behind the Conservancy?
Yeah, well, in addition to the points that David made, this is the exact type of event that David and I love, because it's a running event, it's a 5K that raises money that then goes back into the local community. So the local community benefits. So this is an event and a cause that's very important to us, and these are the type of activities that we love supporting.
I want to put this up on screen because David mentioned Sunday, and I want to clear something up, because if you're watching this show on Sunday morning at 11 on My 48 as opposed to ABC 45 on Saturdays, you still have time to get to this, because the farm run starts at 3 p.m. That's Sunday, 3 p.m. start there at Rinaldo Road, 1001 Rinaldo Road there at Crossnor. And the PiedmontLand.org is the website for the radio listening audience. I'll say it again, PiedmontLand.org. And please go to the Daggett Schuler Law website as well to find out all the great things they do, the great services they provide. 724-1234 is the number as well, but check out the website, Daggett Schuler Law.
And we'll have links to the event also.
Really?
Yes.
I think that's great. To all of you, thanks for everything you do.
Yep.
Happy holidays.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks very
All
much.
right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
We'll be right back today. And something called respite care is very important to a lot of folks. We're going to find out all about it with this very special person. Our guest, first-time visitor to Triad Today, Caitlin Lewis is Director of Community Relations at Mebane Ridge Assisted Living. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right, first, just give us a few seconds on what respite care is so we'll know what we're talking about.
Respite care is for senior living, and it's a short-term stay that people can use for mostly breaks, but it's a short-term stay maximum of 30 days.
All right. And now let's clear this up for a second. Now, what would be a typical example of why somebody might need a respite from things?
I would say a big one is caregiver relief. You know, there's so many different situations out there in the world, but you know, the reality is our bodies, we're human, and we need a break. So this allows for the loved one, the caregiver, to actually be able to relax and have that break, knowing that their loved one is somewhere with around-the-clock care.
And now, what kind of care and services are provided through your place for somebody that wants a break?
So it would have the same amount of care as if a long-term resident was there. They have 3 meals a day, snacks are included, transportation, housekeeping, which we all love to do, right? And
Yeah.
laundry, that's my favorite, but laundry's included as well. And round-the-clock care, like I said, and medication administration.
And social and recreational programs I know are offered as a regular thing if you're a resident of Mebane Ridge, and many of the facilities under the Ridge Care family of communities, recreational and social activities. If I'm coming there and I'm a caregiver and I say I need a couple days just away, are these things that I can take advantage of too, the social and recreational things?
Absolutely. That's one of the highlights about it is it gives them a chance to branch out, socialize with other individuals their age, and going through the same thing. So they're, you know, allowed the activities as such as, you know, outside entertainment, going along with the outings, gets them, maybe even gives them a little push to do something they might not do at home.
You might have an important trip coming up or a business thing or something that needs to be attended to. There'll be all sorts of reasons why you might need a couple of days away.
Exactly.
So that somebody is there. I know because you're located in Mebane, there are communities, facilities all over the state through Ridge Care. Can someone do this at any of those facilities, or how does that work?
Absolutely. Yes, you would just go to the community, ask how, each community might be a little different, but you just ask them how the process works, but most certainly.
Yeah. Why do you think that respite care that Ridge Care believes in it so much in offering this kind of a service? Why is it important to you?
Ridge Care values the importance of respite care for many reasons, but one, again, the break for the caregiver. That's a huge part. You know, like I said, we're human, we need a break. And it also gives them a chance to try it out. Sometimes in that generation, you might not picture it as it really is in reality, and it gives them a chance to say, no, that is not for me, or, you know, maybe I thought I needed some help that I didn't
Right.
realize I needed.
Right.
Versus, and it gives them a choice, you know.
And let's, we didn't rehearse this or anything, but let's get a plug in for Mebane Ridge. Let's tell everybody now, where are you located exactly?
We're located off of 119 in Mebane.
Okay. And now, what kind of gratification do you get sort of on a 24/7 basis of doing your job at an assisted living community? What do you get out of it?
Me personally, honestly, knowing that I'm bringing someone in, we're providing the care, and knowing that they're going to be safe. You know, they're not at home, especially during these winter times. But any time throughout the year, I know that they're going to come in, they're going to be safe. We're going to provide the care. We're there if they need them, and our ultimate goal is for them to get strong.
Right. Well, I just think what you do is great. Up on the screen, ridgecare.com is the website, www.ridgecare.com. I'll say it again for the radio listening audience in WSJS, ridgecare.com, and I really hope that you will check that out. Caitlin, thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having
Good
me.
to see you. We'll be right back after this. Now on Triad Today, and this is a segment for art lovers and art appreciators. I'm not an artist. I have no artistic ability like my dad had, but I appreciate it. So this is going to be an appreciation segment and an awareness segment. We have three fine guests with us to tell you about a big initiative going on in this area. Next to me, Joy Vermillion Heinsohn. She's Assistant Director of the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation. Dr. Betsy Towns is Project Director of something called the Present Absence Project. We'll find out about that in a second. She's also Assistant Dean in the Division of Liberal Arts at UNC School of the Arts. And Owens Daniels, local artist who's involved with this Present Absence Project. And we welcome all three of you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Joy. Remind us of what the Foundation's Public Art Initiative is all about.
Thanks. So the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation is supporting an initiative called the Inclusive Public Art Initiative, and it is aimed at telling the untold or undertold stories of communities across North Carolina, especially stories of women and people of color. So we have 10 grantees across the state of North Carolina, and they are here today representing one of those.
I think that's great, and I'll ask you a little bit later on about when somebody applies for this and that kind of thing. But I want to go to Betsy first. Now tell us about your specific project and how it sets other projects like this. Why is it sort of apart from that and very unique?
Well, from the very setup that the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation established, it was quite different. Typically, a public art project starts with a big wall or a traffic circle or a location that might need ornamentation.
Right.
In this case, it's about stories, and it's a recognition that by choosing the big prominent walls or the big traffic circles, you're not necessarily spreading the power of public art everywhere. So in this case, we have the question of what story needs to be told, and that starts us on a completely different track. So in this project, we were curious about where history had been erased by change in the city and how we could make that history visible. And because I couldn't do that alone, or I or my fellow faculty members at Winston-Salem State and School of the Arts couldn't do that alone, we immediately brought in a large coalition of people who were really the carriers of history in the community, who knew those stories. And very shortly after that, brought in Owens Daniels, who's so good at revealing the power of individual stories.
Owens, I think I read online somewhere that you talk about how you involve community voices in what you create. Tell me about that.
Yes, what I try to do is I try to use visual language to try to communicate something that has happened before to the people who are involved in it now. Whenever you're telling people's story, what I try to keep in mind is I'm not just talking to myself. There's an audience out there, particularly young people in the generation before me, that really needs to hear that conversation, so it gives them a clue to who they are in their history and their culture.
And tell everybody what you're doing then, in case they don't know about this. Is it a mural? Is it a painting? What are you doing?
What I'm doing is creating a 25-foot by 25-foot collage of a combination of varied pictures from the community, particularly the old hospital, which is the KDB hospital,
right.
as well as other parts of the community like the fire station, the merchants that lived in that area, that make up a complete visual picture of what that area used to look like and what does it look like now.
I want to finish up with Joy for a second, and how can people learn more about this and get involved? And is there a deadline, say, for 2020 or whenever the next cycle, for people to say, hey, I think I'd like to do what Owen's doing and take a shot at it? Tell me about some of that.
Yeah, so the best way to learn more about this initiative is to visit our website, which is www.zsr.org.
Okay.
You can learn a lot more about the various projects there. We do not currently have slated another round of this initiative. So
Okay.
we don't yet know whether this will be a one-time initiative or whether we might do it again, but there's no other opportunity to apply at the moment.
But I like what Owen's doing, so we've got to do it again. That's right. No, I think that's great. And I think we're going to try to get a website up there, too, for the project Present Absent. It's pretty long involved. I don't know if people can read it, but it isn't cdiwsnc.org, project/present absence. Did I get
That's
that right?
correct.
You got
So
that
if you can
right.
read all that, and I didn't mangle it too badly, that's what you can do to find out more information. And again, as Joy said, zsr.org is a great website to go to. I just think what you're involved in is great. And the key to it too, Betsy, we have a few seconds left, is this is a permanent thing. This is not, no, all joking aside, it can't be something that you can just tear down or whatever. It's got to be a sculpture or a mural, right?
That's
Something
right.
like that.
A highly visible, highly public location, and also backed by a lot of the research that we found, which will be available at that website online.
I think that's great. Now, when can we see all your stuff, Owens?
You can see all of my artwork at www.owensdaniels.com.
All right, there you go. Thanks for all you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. Hey, just about time for the roundtable. Before we get to that, I want to give a plug for the River Run January Chiller. It's a screening of the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, January 10th and 11th. Veronica Cartwright, what a great character actress she is. She's great. She's going to be there taking some Q&A. The information's on screen, riverrunfilm.com, so check that out if you would. Now, I have three guys I want you to check out right now. Next to me on my right, but always the political left, Ogie Overman, the great broadcaster journalist. Next to him, who's a gentleman who's agreed to stay over from an earlier segment. We're always glad when we can grab him to do that. David Daggett, attorney with Daggett Schuler, who was on the show earlier talking about the Land Conservancy and the Farm Run. And Keith Granberry, founder of Helping Hands Consultants, doing great work in human and economic development around the globe. Gentlemen, let's get to it. Just when we thought all the monument controversies were behind us, the UNC Board of Governors has agreed to give the Sons of the Confederacy $2.5 million for the relocation and maintenance of the Silent Sam statue, so long as it isn't moved into one of the 14 counties where they have a UNC campus. The money will come from a charitable trust, but students are still outraged. Guys, should UNC be paying millions of dollars to a Confederate group? Ogie Overman.
Well, this goes back to when they fired Tom Ross, a great president, and packed the board with all these right-wingers, including Marty Codis. And no, that's just an abomination. That's horrible. That's horrible.
Even though it's not coming
Just
out
get
of
rid of it. Just bury it and get rid of it.
And we can't answer this, but I'm wondering what exactly is a charitable trust that the money would come from? Because it's coming from somewhere. David, what do you think about it?
So we've weighed in on the statue issue on previous shows.
Right.
On this issue, I think there's something to be said for preserving antiquities, even the ones that aren't positive. Now, the price for that and where the money comes from, we could debate and argue about, but I think preserving antiquities is important.
Almost like putting it in a museum or something.
Almost like that. I likened it to, you can go to Germany and visit concentration camps.
Right.
There's a lesson to be learned from that. That doesn't mean you're supporting it.
Got it. Keith?
I think that $2.5 million need to go into historical black colleges. You can move a car for free.
Yeah.
You can't move a statue. You're going to take $2.5 million to move a statue that brings up a racial history that for black people is harmful. I think it's crazy.
It's for the care and feeding of the statue. I don't know what that means. Anyway, speaking of misdirected funds, I'll probably get criticized for saying this. The Winston-Salem community has raised, it's a great project, raised over $2 million to erect decorative arches over a stretch of I-40. And going to Keith's point about something else that money can be used from, we've got a childhood hunger problem here. Wouldn't $2 million have been better spent on something like that, Ogie?
Well, you can argue that, but these things like this, I love these ideas that really don't on the surface make any sense at all. They're just out of the blue. Cities need some kind of a stupid thing for an identity. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I've written about this a lot. A gateway
Arches.
or the Space Needle or something. I've been pushing for the world's largest Coke bottle in Greensboro.
I think there's an arch over David Daggett's office.
It's a rainbow.
Something
Yeah.
that makes
What do you
no
think?
sense.
Well, I think we're the city of arts. Now, whether the arch is what we need or not, we're the city of arts. We also do a lot of work to fight the hunger problem. And it's not trade one for the other. It's yes and yes, let's do both. Now, some of us are going to like the arch and some of us aren't.
Right.
But I think it's a positive move to promote our area and to promote our city.
All right, we're still on this topic, though, about the arches. Keith?
Well, I think, number one, that there's a homeless problem in Winston and other places. I think money should be spent focusing on those issues, and if there's an arch, you can have a private donor that would donate something like that would allow that to happen. But I really feel like we need to focus on the human impact of what we do in our city.
Because I've had,
believe
many
that.
times before, the late, great Clyde Fitzgerald was on the show. Eric Aft comes on the show frequently from the food bank. And I keep thinking about the hunger problem they talk about, especially childhood hunger, the poverty rate, which will astound people in the Winston-Salem area. And it just, I don't know. And I'm not criticizing the people that raise the money, but it just kind of hurts to see that maybe that could have gone to alleviate some problems. Anybody have any other thoughts before we move on?
Why does it have to, like David says, it doesn't have to be an either or, Jim. there's ways to do it.
To do both.
There
All right.
really is.
Following
And I
the-
believe it was private funds.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
believe it was
I
private.
understand
Yeah.
that.
But I still think that in terms of the issues that we face, specifically in communities of colors, there needs to be more funding in these communities, specifically around those issues that we discussed, because
Yeah.
the schools and all those things in some of these communities still need this funding. And if we're spending $2.5 million on an arch when the students in some of these schools cannot even afford lunch money
Yeah.
or school supplies, I think it's a problem.
Yeah, it bothers me. So I'm going to sort of disagree and agree with some of that. It just, if you're hungry, the arches, you can't eat arches. Following the lead of several other states, the North Carolina Republican Party is protecting Donald Trump by refusing to allow any Republican challenger's name on the March 3rd primary ballot. Well, you say, well, so what? Okay. Suppose you're a moderate Republican or a non-affiliated person. You want to vote for, say, former Governor Bill Weld as an alternative to Donald Trump. You can't do that unless you write it in. Is this a form of voter suppression, guys? And would you like to see the State Board of Elections overturn this decision before the ballot's printed? Ogie.
Well, it is. I mean, they even cannibalize themselves. They love voter suppression so much. But my question is, does the Board of Elections have the authority to do that, to overrule the
They
GOP?
can't overrule it.
Well, they should. They absolutely should.
Because the Board of Elections has the final decision on what actually gets printed on that ballot. But the GOP, the Democrats, Republicans, the Green Party, whoever, had to turn in their recommendations, their requirements, and then they can be kicked back out.
But they're Republicans they're keeping off.
I know it. It doesn't make it.
I think in a democracy, you need to hear all voices, and this cuts out some voices. Even if that voice doesn't win, the voice needs to be heard.
Keith Cranberry.
I think the problem is that if you do it with Donald Trump, then you're going to be able to do it with other people. And so you're creating some type of dictatorship when it comes to state parties, when it needs to be an open democracy. That's the
agree.
problem.
I agree. According to a report released last week, in this past year alone, this is astounding, there have been 3,000 reported sexual assaults during Uber rides. Guys, if this had been 3,000 cases of smallpox or something, instead of 3,000 rapes, the state departments, state health departments in every state would have said, we're shutting this thing down until we can figure out what's going on. Maybe I know it's apples and oranges, but still, shouldn't the state and federal agencies step in and threaten to shut Uber down until they figure this out, Ogie?
Yeah, that's a lot. 3,000 is a lot.
They say, well, we're going to work on it. We're going to work on improving.
They've got to vet these drivers or something, or if I were a woman, I would just take a taxi. I'd call a cab. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, David, should we shut
Well,
them down?
no, remember that of that 3,000, some are the passengers assaulting the drivers.
I understand.
So it's both ways. That's why we have a legal system. There's a criminal system and there's a civil system. And between those two systems, we ought to be able to regulate conduct in society. Criminal is an executive function. The civil system is a way to send a message as to what conduct we're going to deem acceptable, and we're going to make them pay a price for deviating from
But
that.
if you're regulating them, doesn't that mean you should, like the health department analogy, shouldn't you be able to shut them down?
You should. Remember, it's a two-way problem. What we got to do is narrow the fences and make the problem smaller.
Well, I think we don't really know how many assaults happen in taxi cabs either. I don't know the answer to that question. But I think that Uber grew so fast that there's probably some kinks that needs to be worked out. As David said, there is the assault of the drivers and assault of the passengers, but there needs to be something worked out because Uber grew so fast, but the money involved in bringing an organization like that, a corporation that to community is so much that they're not going to shut it down.
All right, let's go a little lighter on this, guys. A substitute school, well, I don't know if it's a light topic or not. A substitute school teacher in Brooklyn has been fired after he told a class of first graders the truth about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. Now, I'm not going to say what the truth is, but are you okay with a teacher being fired for ruining the beliefs of small children, Ogie Overman?
Yeah, that's cold-blooded. That's not right. To let a kid be a kid, they have to grow up too fast anyway.
Yeah, what do you
There's
think,
no
Dave?
harm in Santa
This is
Claus.
a legal thing, too, because you've been fired.
Ogie, to you, I'm a kid, and I don't want you to burst my bubble on any of these sort of things either. I'm still trying to sort them out.
You think you should be fired?
No.
No. Keith,
I don't like it, but I'm not sure.
Keith, what do you think? Should the guy have been fired, the teacher have been fired for telling the kids the truth about Santa Claus?
What's the truth about Santa Claus? I'm waiting on him to come and give me my gifts. No. I don't think he should have been fired. I think that he should have been reprimanded, but not fired.
All right,
No.
finally, I don't know about what you guys put under your pillow for the Tooth Fairy, but according to an online poll by the TV show The Doctors, you get a better night's sleep if you put a bar of soap under your pillow. Guys, have you ever slept with a bar of soap in your bed? Ogie?
I've never even heard of that, Jim. It's a funny thing, though. I do sleep with, I have a bunch of little flashlights that I take to bed with me.
You sleep with flashlights?
Yeah, it's a weird thing, but it kind of goes back to childhood, but I like doing it.
True disclosure.
I don't even know how to David, do you
Well,
sleep?
I kind of hate to admit this. I do sleep with a bar of soap because there was another study that showed that it stops calf cramps. And when I'm in the
Calf?
middle,
You sleep with calves?
no, my calves,
Oh,
my
your
legs
calves.
cramp, particularly when I'm in the heat of Ironman
So
training.
soap will-
And if you put soap under your sheet down by your feet, you don't get calf cramps at night.
Keith, have you ever
So-
been to David's house?
so I
when
did-
this
No,
is,
I have never been to David.
You're welcome.
You ever sleep with the soap in your bed, Keith?
No, but I think that people should use soap before they go to bed.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I don't know about
Especially if you're-
sleeping with it.
Yeah, especially if you're sleeping with
That's
calves.
exactly right.
So I'm
All
the
right.
only one that's got experience
No,
on
that's
this.
all
See,
right.
see,
I never heard
That's
of
all the time we have, fortunately, or I don't know what else, except for this. Scientists at MIT have developed a time-release birth control pill that women only have to take once a month. So far, though, the pills only work on pigs. Asked if she likes the new birth control pill, one sow said, "Are you kidding? Have you seen the swine I'm dating?" For all of us here on Triad Today, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you. Have a happy holiday.